My son-in-law handed my daughter the keys to the house I built with my own hands, smiled at her like he'd just closed the deal of his life, and then looked at me like I was a piece of old furniture he needed to get rid of before the movers showed up. "You have 1 hour to pack your things and leave." That was it. No explanation, no apology, just a deadline. My name is Howard Bellamy. I'm 68 years old. I've spent most of my adult life as a carpenter, custom furniture, finish work, the kind of craftsmanship that takes patience and a steady hand. I built the house we were standing in 35 years ago with my own 2 hands. Poured the foundation, framed every wall, hung every door. And on a cold Tuesday morning in March, I was being told I had 60 minutes to clear out of it. My wife Beverly had been gone for 3 years. I still wasn't used to handling things without her. My daughter Claire is 37. She's a good person, I believe that even now, even after everything. But she had been married to Gary Pruitt for 4 years, and somewhere in that time Gary had gotten very deep inside her head. Gary was a commercial real estate broker. Sharp dresser, big handshake, the kind of man who worked the word leverage into every conversation like it was punctuation. I never fully trusted him from the moment Claire brought him home, but I kept that to myself because Claire was happy. Or at least she looked it. He came into my workshop that morning with Claire 1 step behind him. She wasn't making eye contact with me. That alone told me something was wrong, but I still wasn't ready for what came out of his mouth. Gary said he and Claire had been in contact with a care facility specialist. He said that at 68, living alone in a house this size was a liability for my health and safety. He used that word, liability, like he was describing a line item on a balance sheet. He said Claire had already signed a medical power of attorney on my behalf to make sure I was protected. I looked at my daughter. She was staring at the floor. I said, "Claire, you signed something without talking to me." Gary answered before she could open her mouth. "The paperwork is already filed, Howard. The facility has a spot. It's a good one. You'll be comfortable there. I'm 68, not 98. I run power tools every single day. I drive myself to the hardware store. I manage my own finances, fix my own plumbing, and I still take on custom commissions that clients wait 6 months for." But Gary had spent months, maybe longer, quietly building a case with my daughter, dropping words like concerned and unstable and too much for him to manage alone until Claire started hearing them as her own thoughts. The locksmith's van was already parked outside. I saw it through the workshop window when Gary started talking. He hadn't waited to see how the conversation went. He knew how it was going to go because he had planned every part of it. I packed in silence. Kansas duffel bag, 3 flannel shirts, the photographs of Beverly, my good chisel, and the flannel I'd been wearing the day Beverly and I came home from the hospital with Claire. I don't know why I grabbed that last one. I just did. I walked out of the workshop for what I figured was the last time and didn't look back. If I'd turned around, I wouldn't have made it to the end of the driveway. I had $7 in cash. My debit card was frozen. I found that out when I tried to call the bank from the sidewalk. Gary had gotten access to my accounts during what he'd called the transition process. Weeks ago, apparently, under the authority of that power of attorney Claire had signed, standing out there on the street with a duffel bag at my feet and the cold coming through the soles of my work boots, I reached into my wallet to see what I actually had left. Behind a photograph of Beverly, my fingers found something I hadn't touched in years. A card, her card. A plain blue debit card with her name on it, Beverly Bellamy, printed in simple letters. I remembered her using it for quilting supplies, thread, batting, specialty fabric she ordered from a shop in Vermont. I'd asked her once why she kept a separate account just for her hobby, and she smiled and said, "Every woman needs a little money that's just hers, Howard." I held it for a second, standing there on the sidewalk in front of the house I built, and then I put it in my shirt pocket and started walking. I found a motel on the edge of town, the kind of place where the carpet is sticky and the heater groans when you turn it on. $55 a night, cash only. I paid for the first night with what I had and asked the clerk if he could hold the room while I figured out the rest. He looked at me for a long moment and said yes. I lay on that bed for a long time that first night just staring at the ceiling. Beverly's card was on the nightstand next to her photograph. I thought about what she used to say when things got hard. "You don't have to see the whole staircase, Howard, just the next step." Monday morning, I found the next step. The First National Bank on 17th Street opened at 9 a.m. I was there at 8:50, sitting on a bench outside in my work boots and a wrinkled flannel shirt, holding Beverly's blue card in my coat pocket. I had no real expectation of anything. I figured the account was probably closed or had $40 in it for quilting supplies. I just needed to know. When you have nothing, even a little information feels like something to hold on to. The lobby was all marble and polished wood and climate-controlled air. I felt out of place the moment I walked in, the kind of place where everyone seems to know exactly what they're doing and why they're there. I got in line behind a woman in a business suit and waited my turn. The teller was a young guy, maybe 28, crisp white shirt, name tag that said Trent. He gave me a professional smile when I stepped up. I slid Beverly's card across the counter and told him it had belonged to my late wife and I just needed to check the balance on the account. He picked it up, looked at it briefly, and swiped it through the reader. Started typing. The sound of his keyboard was the only thing I was focused on. Then the typing stopped, just stopped, mid-sentence. I watched him stare at the screen. He didn't move for a full 3 or 4 seconds. Then he looked up at me, looked back at the screen, and reached slowly for the phone behind the counter. He didn't say a word to me. He just picked it up and spoke quietly into the receiver. I thought I was about to be escorted out of the building for trying to use a dead woman's card. Instead, a woman in a navy suit came out of a back office and walked directly toward me, not toward the counter, toward me. She introduced herself as Lorraine Holt, branch manager. She did not ask me to step aside or lower my voice. She spoke to me like I was someone who mattered. "Mr. Bellamy," she said, "we've been waiting for this card to be presented for 3 years. Would you come with me, please? There are things you need to see." She led me past the velvet rope, past the security gate, and into a private room off the main corridor. The room had heavy curtains and a single terminal on a desk and 2 leather chairs. She offered me water. I took it because my mouth had gone completely dry. Lorraine pulled up Beverly's account on the secure terminal and turned the screen toward me. The first thing I saw was a long list of holdings. Company names I recognized from the news: Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, names my son-in-law used to drop in conversation like he owned a piece of them. Then I saw the total, $12,482,000. I asked Lorraine to say the number out loud. I needed to hear it from another person to believe it was real. She said it again clearly, and then she slid a thumbprint reader across the desk. The machine struggled with my calluses for a moment. 50 years of carpentry leaves marks on your hands that confuse biometric readers, but it beeped. The screen unlocked and the full account opened in front of me. Beverly had been investing since 1992. Small amounts at first, money she saved from selling her hand-stitched quilts at craft fairs, a little she'd set aside from the household budget each month. She bought shares in companies she believed in and left them alone for 30 years. She never told me. Not once. When I asked about her separate account, she always said it was just for her hobby and smiled like she knew something I didn't. She did. She knew quite a lot that I didn't. Lorraine explained that Beverly had set up a specific instruction with the bank. If my primary accounts were ever frozen or accessed without my direct authorization, the legacy card was to be flagged immediately, and the account held exclusively for me. Beverly had built a tripwire. She had anticipated this. She had seen Gary Pruitt coming years before he ever showed up in my workshop. I sat with that for a minute. Then Lorraine brought in Sandra Yates, the bank's estate specialist. Sandra had run a mandatory verification on the trust account and found something that had nothing to do with Beverly's investments. She turned a printed credit report toward me and set her pen on 3 highlighted lines. 3 credit accounts had been opened in Beverly's name after she died. Bank of America, $28,000. Wells Fargo, $22,000. Chase, $25,000. All 3 opened using Beverly's social security number and date of birth. All 3 tied to a billing address in Aurora I didn't recognize. The account recovery email on every single one of them used a domain I knew immediately. Gary's brokerage firm. Sandra pointed to the opening dates. The first account was activated 6 weeks after Beverly's funeral. While I had been sitting in our living room, staring at her empty chair and figuring out how to get through the next day, someone had taken her name, her social security number, and the fact of her death and turned it into a line of credit. I looked at the numbers on that page for a long time. Then I asked Lorraine what kind of card she had given me access to. She reached into her desk drawer and set a black titanium card on the table. That, she said, represents the full authority of the Bellamy Trust. It's yours, Mr. Bellamy. I picked it up. It was heavier than it looked. I had a lot of work to do. Dennis Vance ran his private investigation firm out of a second-floor office in the Lodo district. The kind of place with a frosted glass door and filing cabinets that looked like they hadn't been moved since 1987. He was a former Denver PD detective, 51 years old, with the kind of face that had seen enough of the world's worst decisions to stop being surprised by any of them. I walked in that afternoon with the titanium card in my pocket and the printed credit report in my hand, and told him I wanted to know everything there was to know about Gary Pruitt. Dennis leaned back in his chair and looked at the papers I set on his desk. He didn't say much. He asked a few questions. He wrote down some names and dates. Then he told me to give him 2 weeks. What he came back with was worse than I had expected, and exactly as bad as I should have known to fear. Gary had done this before. In Atlanta, in 2019, he had married a woman named Patricia Elwood. Patricia's father was 71 years old, retired, owned his home outright. Gary spent about 18 months building trust with the family, and then talked Patricia into signing a medical power of attorney for her father, using the same language he had used with Claire. Concern, safety. Too much for him to manage alone. The father was healthy and sharp, same as me, didn't matter. Once Gary had the legal authority he needed, he began negotiating a property sale without the father's knowledge. He moved the proceeds through a holding account and was 2 states away before the family understood what had happened. The father lost his home. The daughter spent years trying to put the pieces together. Gary had changed firms and changed cities and started over. Dennis pulled out a second file and set it next to Gary's. Larry Stowe was a real estate attorney who had handled Beverly's estate paperwork 3 years ago when she died. He had been present at the reading of her will. He knew about the trust. He knew about the property. And Dennis had traced him back through 6 years of phone records and financial transfers to a connection with Gary that predated Gary ever meeting Claire. Larry Stowe had introduced Gary to Claire at a charity event 5 years ago. They had split referral fees on commercial property deals going back to 2018. Gary had not wandered into our family by accident. He had been pointed at us by a man who already knew what was inside. I sat in that office chair and looked at the 2 files side by side and thought about the day Claire brought Gary home for dinner. How Beverly had been quiet all evening, how she had helped me clear the dishes afterward and said, almost to herself, "That man measures everything, Howard, even the things you can't see." I had told her she was being too hard on him. Dennis also found the Aurora address from the credit report. It was a mailbox Gary had rented under a shell name to collect fraud statements before they could reach me. The lease was signed in Gary's handwriting. Dennis had pulled the original document from the building manager, a man named Terry Hobbs, who had been receiving a monthly cash payment to keep the box active and not ask questions. When Dennis showed Hobbs a photograph of Gary, Hobbs identified him immediately and said Gary had come in wearing a ball cap and sunglasses every time, paid cash, and always came alone. The last thing Dennis found was the one that changed the shape of everything. Beverly had not just left me money. She had filed an irrevocable trust with a property clause that Dennis had a real estate attorney review within 24 hours of finding it. The clause was specific. No sale, transfer, or conveyance of the Highlands property was legally valid without my biometric signature. Not Claire's, not a power of attorney holder's, mine alone. Every contract Gary had been quietly building with a buyer, Dennis had found 2 of them in various stages of negotiation, was void before the first signature dried. Gary had been selling a house he had no legal right to sell. He had been doing it for months, carefully, systematically. And he had no idea that Beverly had built a wall around that property years before he ever came into the picture. I paid Dennis his full retainer that afternoon and told him I needed one more thing. I needed him to stay quiet about what we knew for exactly 2 more weeks, long enough for Gary to get comfortable, long enough for him to schedule a closing. Dennis looked at me over the rim of his coffee mug. You want him at the table before he knows the table belongs to you. That was exactly what I wanted. I left Dennis's office and drove to the building where Philip Garrett kept his practice. Philip was a corporate and estate attorney whose office was on the 38th floor with a view of the Rockies on a clear day. I set the full evidence file on his desk and told him I did not want to send Gary a letter. I did not want to file an injunction. I did not want to warn him. I wanted Gary Pruitt to sit down at a closing table and sign his name on a contract to sell my house. And I wanted to be the one who showed him in that room, in front of everyone present, that he had never had the right to sell it in the first place. Philip looked at the file for a long time. Then he looked at me. Give me 10 days. He said, I'll have everything ready. Philip worked fast. Within 10 days, he had set up a holding entity called Summit Capital and used Beverly's trust funds to quietly acquire the mortgage Gary had taken out against the Highlands property. That single move made me Gary's primary lien holder. Every dollar of credit Gary had borrowed against my house now ran through an entity Gary had never heard of, controlled entirely by the man he had put on the sidewalk with $7 and a duffel bag. Philip then contacted the buyer Gary had lined up through a title company downtown. He told the buyer's agent that a trust document needed to be reviewed before the closing could proceed. Routine matter, just a formality, nothing to raise any alarm. The closing was scheduled for a Thursday morning. I did not sleep well the night before. I lay in the motel room with the lights off and thought about Beverly. I thought about the fact that she had seen all of this coming and had spent years quietly building the legal architecture to stop it. She had done it without telling me because she knew I would have pushed back. I would have said she was being too hard on Gary, too suspicious, too negative about a man our daughter loved. She knew me well enough to know that, so she had worked around my blind spots and protected me anyway. That is a particular kind of love. The kind that doesn't need you to understand it while it's happening. Thursday morning, I put on the best suit I had bought with Beverly's money, a dark charcoal that fit right, and drove downtown. I did not go into the title company. Philip had been clear about that. I waited in a coffee shop 2 blocks away with my phone on the table and a cup I barely touched. Gary arrived at the title company at 9 a.m. I know because Dennis was parked across the street and texted me when Gary walked in. Gary was in his good suit, the navy one he wore when he wanted to impress people. He had his briefcase. He shook hands with the buyer's representative, introduced himself to the notary, and sat down at the closing table like a man who believed he was about to collect the biggest check of his career. For about 8 minutes, everything looked exactly the way Gary expected it to look. Then Philip Garrett walked through the door. Philip set his briefcase on the table, introduced himself to everyone present, and placed 2 documents side by side on the closing table. The first was Beverly's irrevocable trust with the biometric property clause highlighted in yellow. The second was the Summit Capital lien documentation showing the full acquisition of Gary's mortgage. He explained both documents in plain language, slowly, so that everyone in the room understood exactly what they were looking at. The property could not be sold, transferred, or conveyed without Howard Bellamy's direct biometric authorization. Howard Bellamy had not provided that authorization. Howard Bellamy had not been consulted. The contract Gary had brought to this table was void. It had been void from the moment Gary started negotiating it. Additionally, Philip explained, the mortgage Gary had used as his financial foundation for this transaction was now held by Summit Capital, which meant Gary's primary debt obligation now belonged to the same trust that had just invalidated his sale. The buyer's representative stopped taking notes. The notary put down her pen. Gary sat completely still for a moment. Then he looked at Philip and asked who Summit Capital was. Philip told him. I was not in the room to see Gary's face when he heard my name. I have thought about that moment many times since, and I think Philip was right to keep me out of there. What happened next needed to be clean and legal and unquestionable, and my being present would have made it personal in a way that courts don't like. What happened next was that FBI Special Agent Judith Mercer walked through the door with 2 other agents, wire fraud, document forgery, posthumous identity theft of a deceased person. Gary was placed under arrest at the closing table in front of the buyer, the notary, Philip, and everyone else present. His briefcase was taken as evidence. His phone was taken. He was walked out of that title company in handcuffs and put into a federal vehicle on a Thursday morning in downtown Denver. Larry Stowe was arrested at his office at the same time by a separate team. Philip called me 11 minutes after Gary left the building in handcuffs. I answered on the first ring. It's done, Philip said. I finished my coffee. It had gone cold, but I drank it anyway. Then I put on my coat and walked out into the morning air and stood on the sidewalk for a few minutes, just breathing. People walked past me on their way to work. Nobody knew what had just happened 2 blocks away. Nobody knew that a man who had stolen a dead woman's identity to fund his own schemes had just been taken out of a room where he thought he was winning. I thought about Beverly. I thought about what she would have said if she could have seen that morning. She probably would have just smiled. That quiet smile she had when things turned out the way she had planned. I drove back to the motel, changed out of the suit, and waited for Claire to call. I knew she would. I just didn't know yet what version of my daughter I would find on the other end of the line. Claire called that evening around 7. I was sitting in the motel room with the TV off and the curtains open, watching the lights come on across the city. She didn't say hello. She just said Dad and then couldn't get any further than that for a while. I waited. I had learned a long time ago that sometimes the most useful thing a father can do is just stay on the line. When she finally spoke, she told me that FBI agents had come to the house that afternoon. They had walked her through what Gary had done. Not just the closing, not just the power of attorney, all of it. The Atlanta family, the credit accounts opened in Beverly's name, the Shell mailbox in Aurora, Larry Stowe's role in pointing Gary toward our family in the first place. The agents had laid it out piece by piece, and Claire had sat at the kitchen table in the house I built and listened to the full shape of the things she had been living inside. She said she kept thinking about the date on the first fraud account, 6 weeks after Beverly's funeral. She said she remembered that period clearly because Gary had been so attentive during it, bringing her coffee in the mornings, telling her to take her time grieving, checking in on how she was doing. While he was doing that, he was also filling out applications using her mother's social security number. I didn't say anything to that. There wasn't anything useful to say. Claire told me she wanted to go to the FBI field office the next morning and give them her phone. Gary's texts to her about the power of attorney were on there. The whole sequence of how he had framed it to her, what words he had used, how long it had taken him to bring her around to signing it. She said she knew nobody was charging her with anything, but she wanted the record to be complete. She wanted every piece of that conversation documented. I told her that was the right call. She said she knew. Then she asked if she could come by in the morning before she went to the field office. I told her yes. I told her to come early and I would have coffee ready. She showed up at 7 a.m. We sat at a small table by the window with bad motel coffee and didn't talk about Gary at all. We talked about Beverly, about specific things Claire remembered. The quilt Beverly had made for Claire's first apartment, the colors she had chosen, how long it had taken, the way Beverly used to hum while she cooked without realizing she was doing it, the expression she made when she thought something was funny but was trying not to show it. We talked for almost 2 hours. Then Claire hugged me at the door and drove to the federal building. Gary Pruitt received 9 years in federal prison. Wire fraud, document forgery, posthumous identity theft. Larry Stowe received 6 years for conspiracy and breach of fiduciary duty. Claire was not charged. She was listed as a cooperating witness, and her voluntary phone surrender was noted in the sentencing documentation. I used Beverly's trust to repay every client Gary had misled during his time as their broker. Philip told me I was not legally required to cover more than the principal amounts. I told Philip that the Bellamy name was worth more than the legal minimum, and we were going to act accordingly. We covered principal and interest, and in 2 cases, we covered additional losses the clients had incurred trying to find replacement representation. It took most of a year to work through all of it. The Highlands house is mine again. The workshop smells the way it is supposed to smell, cedar and linseed oil, and the particular dusty warmth that comes from wood being worked in a heated space. I was back in there within a month of the closing table arrest, finishing a commission I had promised a client before any of this started. Claire and I spent the following year converting the back acre of the property into the Bellamy Learning Center. We named it after Beverly. The center teaches Finnish carpentry, textile arts, and one course Claire designed herself on financial literacy and fraud prevention for older adults. That last one fills up faster than any other class we offer. There's an oak chair in the main workshop room. I had been sanding it the morning Gary showed up with his locksmith and his 60-minute deadline. I never got back to it that day. Claire finished it while the trial was running. She worked on it in the evenings after school, going slowly following the grain, using the same technique I had shown her when she was 9 years old and convinced she could build a birdhouse in an afternoon. She oiled it herself and set it by the window where the morning light comes in. The first time I sat in it, I did not say anything for a long time. It fit exactly right. The joinery was clean, the finish was even. Beverly would have approved. I think about her every morning in that workshop, about the woman who spent 30 years quietly building walls around the people she loved while the rest of us went about our days without knowing the walls were there. She saw what was coming, she planned for it, she made sure I would be standing when it arrived. That is the part I keep coming back to. If you are reading this and someone in your life has been quietly working to protect you without making it about themselves, pay attention to that. That kind of love does not announce itself. You may not recognize it until the moment you actually need it. And if someone has tried to take what you built, what you earned, what you spent your life making, do not meet it with rage. Meet it with patience and documentation and people who know the law better than your enemies do. The truth does not need to be loud. It just needs to be in the right room at the right time. I was in that room. Beverly made sure of it.